Hey, welcome back to the PDP Coaching Channel. I'm Steve the Dragon Bale.
And I'm Liz Phoenix Gasson.
Hey, today we want to do a quickie and we want to talk to you about that, Tailwind Nutrition, and Liz and her multiple sclerosis. So, something that's an interesting fact you might not know about the Tailwind is that, of course, it's good for athletes, but some of the side benefits to do with Tailwind and its makeup have actually been really, really beneficial for Liz and her multiple sclerosis, overcoming some of the symptoms of it that have affected her cycling. And there's some other side things that are quite interesting to know about how she's used it completely not to do with cycling. Because you might say, well, how does it, especially, how's it having multiple sclerosis? Why is it especially effective for that? Well, I'd like to ask Phoenix that. Tell me. Tell me about your MS and your Tailwind journey and what's up.
Well, this is a nice, for us it's a Monday, nice happy discussion. Talking about MS on a Monday, but it actually is a very positive topic because Tailwind has helped me not only during my competitive sports or training activities, but for my MS in general, because I don't know how much you all know about MS, but it has a series of issues. One is that it can affect the nerves going into your gut motility. So you get lots of GI, gastrointestinal issues, and gastrointestinal tract inflammation and things like that. And you often find that you can't eat certain foods, or you throw them up, or you can't process them, or it gives you a horrible tummy ache or something like that. And as you know, as probably other athletes, when you're right in the middle of training or in a competition and you try and eat something and it doesn't agree with you, you get those horrible stomach cramps. We get that pretty much all the time with MS. It's pretty awful. So what we needed to do is find a solution for both training, for sports, and through everyday life that will help me fuel, because the other thing that can happen is you get MS fatigue. And basically how we describe it is MS fatigue is if you imagine a tunnel and your cars are going through and you've got a double lane going through. Those are your nerve pathways being signaled. And if half the tunnel collapses over because of a lesion that your body has created, it collapses that tunnel and makes it harder for the traffic to go through. And so with MS, the lesions make those tunnels smaller and smaller and smaller. And one of the things that can happen is when you're trying to move your hand, say, I don't know the exact number, but we'll just make them up. Maybe it takes 15,000 impulses for you to move your hand. For us, it takes 100,000 impulses to move our hand because of that traffic buildup. So we get what's called neurological fatigue or MS fatigue. And that's not like, just have a nap and you'll recover. One of the things that can make that MS fatigue worse is if you have major energy spikes. So if you have, often when you're tired, people say, go and have a nap. That doesn't help with nerve fatigue. Or go and have a piece of sugar or a cup of coffee. It'll make you feel better. That also brings in big highs and lows, which can also ultimately, because it makes your body fire faster, those nerve impulses, makes fatigue a lot worse. So what you want is a steady stream of good nutrition coming in that gives you good constant energy. And so why I like Tailwind is for both the GI tract upsets and for the constant flow of energy because of its ingredients. And also the third thing, and I'll go into a bit more detail on each of these things in a second. And the third thing is I really like it because it also keeps me hydrated. And often my impulses in my body don't alert me that I'm hydrated or I'm dehydrated. And then I get a really bad headache or I feel sick. And Tailwind with the hydration, so I'm going to now sort of circle back to all of this. Because of its makeup, because they use things like very clean, they don't use chemicals, there's no additives. It's with good carbohydrates, good sugars like dextrose and sucrose. It allows much more permeability through the gut lining, which means it's much more natural, doesn't cause so much inflammation.
Well, that's the electrolytes in it, right?
Yeah, that's
electrolytes are what your body uses to improve the osmosity of the gut wall, the rate at which it can transfer water. The job of the gut is to absorb water. That's what it does. And that's what those, if you're ever wondering what electrolytes do, that's what they do.
And it also, apart from the electrolytes also, which is really important, it has things like potassium, magnesium, sodium, calcium, And magnesium is particularly important for people with MS, and potassium, because it reduces muscle cramps and spasms, which we get all the time. So in combination with all of these amazing ingredients, and because it's so clean and clear and natural, your body can absorb it, like you were saying. It's much more permeable through the gut lining, doesn't cause gastric distress, and it doesn't have those big highs and lows of energy flow.
And there's the taste factor as well. Like the thing that's a bit different about Tailwind is it really doesn't have the same kind of sweetness as a lot of sports drinks do.
It doesn't leave that horrible sick
and I don't really know why. Yeah, because surely that would be symptomatic of having glucose in it, but for whatever reason it doesn't. There's a really cool one if you really just don't want really any flavor. There's naked flavor, and as the name would imply, there's really no flavoring at all. It's not really the same as drinking water, but it's not far off.
No, and it's not really salty either. It doesn't hit your palate like, oh, that's really salty, but it gives you enough that it just sort of satisfies that when you've been sweating and you've been overheating and things like that. And that's another thing with MS is you can get very overheated, and that also really affects your MS symptoms and things like that. And having those kinds of salt coming on board, the cooling liquid, everything, it really helps settle your whole system down. We've got a couple of quick anecdotes. One, I use Tailwind especially after my treatments because they're very harsh. They're a type of chemotherapy, and I often vomit and things like that. So being able to sip on something while I'm having these treatments or afterwards for the next couple of days really helps me keep up my energy. And
would that be the recovery one more?
I actually find that the recovery one, I like the chocolate, and it doesn't have any caffeine or anything like that. So I actually use a little bit of both during the day. Usually when I'm having, if I'm having the treatment, I don't want really any caffeine because they kind of sedate you anyway a little bit. So I use that recovery just to keep my energies low and balanced, not low and balanced. I want it to be slow and balanced throughout the day. Whereas if I then have to go to work the next day, I might want to, I'm still feeling a bit crummy from the treatment and stuff. I might use the endurance fuel to get me through the day when I still can't eat very much because it has a little bit of caffeine and I can't tolerate coffee or anything like that. So it's really a great balance and a great mixture.
Yeah, and it's very calorically dense. With one little scoop endurance fuel is 100 calories. So it's easy to measure out as well, because if you know that you need to take in 300 or 400 calories per hour, or 3 or 4 scoops in whatever you're going to drink per hour, that's pretty good.
And the other thing is it actually saved my life. So one of the things that can happen, as we were talking, I can go into neurological fatigue or neurological distress. My body can overheat, which can cause central nervous system shutdown. And I was at a major competition, and that happened.
The National Cycling Champs, Rotorua 2020 maybe,
that's right.
Like that.
And I went unconscious. It also happened in Belgium as well.
Yes, it did.
And at a World Cup in Belgium. And I collapsed after the race, and Steve had to actually dribble it into my mouth just to get my sugars back up again. And that was more helpful than anything that the ambulance people were doing, including the oxygen mask they had on me and the revival and things.
Quick tip, don't assume that paramedics on site at events are highly trained necessarily, because
especially in complex disorders like MS.
And
elite cycling.
It's quite eye-opening, for example, that when the paramedics were doing a blood sugar, glucose test, they didn't bother cleaning Liz's finger at all. Normally you would clean a site like that with alcohol swab is best.
Although I know that there are some controversial thoughts now about cleaning the site before that, but why it's really important to do that, especially at a cycling event, is because I am drinking, and I've got a sugary compound like Tailwind. Sometimes I'll dribble and it will go onto my fingers, and that will cause it to be sweating.
So you could have a falsely high blood glucose, and I suspect you did, because the thing that fixed you up was the Tailwind.
Absolutely, and I was also very dehydrated as well.
Yeah, without knowing that, you might have assumed that you had adequate blood sugar. Yeah,
and it was because I couldn't drink my Tailwind while I was training because I was having muscle spasms, and so I needed to. We've changed our program a little bit more. I've needed to have a full bottle before about finish drinking it an hour before the competition. So I fuel 2 hours before the competition, make sure that I finish fueling an hour before, make sure I start fueling 2 hours before the competition, finish drinking an hour before the competition, so I have time to get it through the system and pee. Otherwise, I'm not hydrated enough, or I'm not as hydrated as I think I am, because my systems and my signals get all messed up. So we love Tailwind Nutrition. I love this new flavour, the watermelon. We've just gotten it here in New Zealand. It's one of my favourite.
I used it yesterday in my race, and it was lovely. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Actually. It's a really good, even at quite high concentrations, it
still not that sweet.
seem that sweet. I don't quite know how that can be, but maybe it's, I don't know, it's a balance of ingredients as a whole. And just kind of the watermelon flavour is like quite light flavour.
Yeah.
So it's definitely watermelon flavour.
Yeah.
But I reckon it's probably one of the best.
I think so too. Yeah. I really like it. And it's, I use it from when I'm training at the moment and some of my rides. And it just, it does hit that little, when you need that little bit of a sugar hit, it just touches that.
That's perfect.
The sensors in the mouth, I guess. And really satisfying.
All right, so should we call it there? So that's just a little bit on a little personal experience using the Tailwind. You can go to tailwindnutrition.com. Here's the website. You can just hit shop. So it says here, do you want to go to the New Zealand store? Because I'm in New Zealand, but no, I'll just put it into the American version. You can hit shop here, and you can look at all the products that they've got.
You've got some cool merch as well.
They've got some cool merch there too. I would invite you to try it for those reasons.
Yep, and you can also get a special bundle deal with our plans and packages on our website. We have calculated exactly what you need for each plan and program. So you just go to the plans, and it comes through with what you need for, it's a 6 months, so for the 6 month package, you get 6 months of Tailwind Nutrition support packages, and we have calculated for everything that you need for both training, hydration, and recovery.
That'll support your training, and it's all calculated out to be the right amount of electrolyte, the right amount of endurance fuel, and the right amount of recovery for all of the training sessions, and we can explain how that's figured out. All comes in, it's all thrown in, there's no extra cost.
And you get to choose your own flavors. You can tailor it to what you would like, flavor-wise, whether or not it's naked, whether or not it's chocolate.
So all of the flavors are listed there, every single one of them.
Yeah, and it's fantastic. So and it gets delivered straight to your door. So you can't wait to hear what you think about it.
Happy days, all right? Get it on. Mahalo, pdbcoaching.com, tailwindnutrition.com.
Hope to see you soon.
See you soon in Bama.